Coming to you live, spirit and coffee. Got my coffee here. Yum, yum, yum. Num, 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 num. Ha, 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 ha. Hello, Marla. How are you today? Mm, hopefully, you're doing fantabulous, marvelous, and just delightful. Um, yeah, welcome. Let's get started. It has been a pretty amazing journey, right? This last year, this year, and I mean, all of our life obviously is a cool journey if we allow it to be. But there's been some big, huge shifts and changes in the world. We see that people are starting to shift their consciousness, worldviews are starting to shift. um, Everything's been flipped on its head and upside down. So been pretty crazy, right? It's been a pretty crazy roller coaster, and that's part of the storyline. We go on this roller coaster, we go on this journey. So you are on your hero's journey. You are the hero of your own journey. People don't realize that. They're looking for a hero to come save them. Guess what? You are the hero. And it is your journey. The second that you decided you were going to be born into this place, this crazy, wonky, weird, reality, or quote unquote reality that we experience here, you chose into the journey. And so you become the hero's journey. And so you are the hero. And there's other things that you are. You start to embody, good morning, Terry, embody different personalities, different ways of approaching the world. And when you understand those bigger drives that are within you, the bigger archetypal patterns, or personalities, or however you want to call them, that are constellated inside of you, when you start to recognize them, you can start to shape and create your own world. And I talked about that before. How do you shape your own reality? How do you shape your own storyline in your own world? We can allow the masses to shape our storyline for us if we want to. And that's a personal choice. And when we do that, what we're typically doing is listening to what they're telling us we should do, and not really listening to the internal self, right? What does the internal self tell us to do? Right? We have this internal voice, and that internal voice sort of tells us, I don't know if this is a good idea. I don't know. And they call it intuition, right? Because you'll be like, wow, I shouldn't have done that, or I should have done this, or I knew it, I felt it in my gut. We don't listen to that very often. I think generally in the past we used to, because we didn't have television telling us what to think, what to do, how to act, how to react, what we should be thinking. So really, you have the ability to make up your own choices in your own mind. Your mind is liberated when you do that. Your body, your spirit, everything is flowing, and it's flowing for your higher benefit, for your self good, right? So when you start to know thyself, you understand what is good for you and what is not. And you can make choices from a place of power, right? Rather than a place of, I don't know, or I'm scared. I'm just going to do it because I'm scared that I won't be belong, or that people will think I'm crazy, or whatever it is. You start to stand in your power and say, yeah, I'll stand in my crazy by myself over here, but I know why I'm doing it. And I understand why I'm making the choices that I do. And so you choose in to your storyline powerfully. Okay. You become powerful in your story, in your convictions. Now, here's the deal. Yes, some people can become distorted in their way of viewing the world and cause some harm. But when you're doing it with the intention of a good heart, you will have the discernment to recognize when you're standing boldly in something that is going to harm others. So this is not about that. This is not about being stubborn, and standing in something that's going to harm others. Rather than that, it's standing in your personal truth for the betterment of humanity. Okay. Good morning, Apostle Noah. And when you do that, when you stand in that power and you allow yourself to shape the very storyline and the very fabric of your life, you start to see that there is no other authority than the authority of God. Okay. And that God becomes your authority. Good morning to those. Good morning. I don't know who's on the podcast. I know Kumar's here. I can't see who else is here, but good morning to you as well. I think is it Betty? And when you stand in that power, right? Kingdom greetings, great woman. Yes, greetings to you. And then you allow yourself to become the vessel, right? The vessel. More grace to you. Grace to you as well. Yes, my God says watching with me. Thanks, Betty. That God, it starts to become that you become this sort of part of the embodiment of God, right? It moves through you. You become the vessel of that. When it's done with righteousness, okay, in the intention of loving and giving back to humanity. So you become the vessel. You create the storyline, and what you do is you start to transform the very people around you and the bubble around you. So in other words, everything in your space starts to transform into beauty, into love, into kindness, into compassion, into forgiveness. You become this center of this energy and the storyline. So if another storyline is trying to come in and rock you away from that, or take you away from that, or tempt you away from your grace and your beauty, right, you're powerful in your conviction of who you are and what you choose, that nothing can break through that bubble. No temptation, no person can pull you away, nothing can be harmed. And when you look at these great teachers, right, when you go back in history and you see all these great teachers that came, they understood and they stood in their conviction to what they were doing. They didn't waver. They didn't waver. And I know we talk about a lot of men, but look at even like Mother Teresa, right? She was a great person because she stood in her convictions to serve humanity. And she was offered, well, why are you living there? Come here. There was that temptation of stardom, right? Like people get tempted with stardom all the time. And we see this, and this is why we see these beautiful young individuals who start out in the industry and they're so innocent. And then you see them as adults and you're like, what happened? Well, basically, they compromise their integrity. They compromised their storyline. They didn't stand true to their convictions, because then maybe they wouldn't have been aired all over the radio station or whatever it was. Or, we have the power to do what we need to do. And if you're not going to follow our rules, then it's not going to happen. But when you stand true in your conviction, right, which is not easy, because you're basically saying, I deny all that jewels and everything that you put in my face. And we see this when in the storyline, right, that even in the Bible, so the Bible does talk about this. It's like, give up all your worldly possessions and walk the path. And then people are like, I don't know if I want to give up my worldly possessions. But there's no other possession greater than the kingdom of heaven or God, right? And what they're saying is that when you give that up, the miracles are more, the gift of a miracle is greater than any material that you could find on this planet. It's greater than. So if you know yourself and you can create your storyline, the miracles that show up are beyond our own understanding at times. But you can't view the miracle if in other words, if you're looking at this material stuff, right, your focus is all the material, right? I'm focused on, this big, beautiful heart. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, okay? So don't hear me say that. But if there's this big, beautiful car, this big, beautiful mansion, you're focused on all that material, that you can't even see the miracles that are happening through God's grace. It's like you're sort of blinded by all this stuff. And we've got to lift the veil and start to look at the beauty of nature, of what God has to offer. That doesn't mean you can have nice things, right? That's not the point here. And we start to look at that, right? And we start to shape our world through the miracle of God. It's different than what we want to do sometimes. But internally, we understand that it's calling us forth. We get it because our internal calling comes through and we can feel it. And that is the intuition I'm talking about. When you know that there's something just not right, or you know that something's coming up for you and you go against the grain and you sell out on yourself. And then you go, shit, I shouldn't have done that. I knew it. I knew it internally. I knew it. Listen to that intuition. It's powerful and it's there for a reason. And when you start to shape your storyline, it starts to grow further and further and further and further and further to farther reaches of, it'll start internally, right? Your storyline starts internally. To shift it internally first. You've got to shift your storyline internally and fight those battles internally. When you start to do that, it starts to expand. It expands into the family, right? Typically your siblings or your parents or whatever. And then it starts to expand beyond that. Friends. And then beyond your friends, maybe their community or maybe a group. And then the community. And then maybe a state. And then before you know it, it's worldly. That's how it expands out. It starts small, right? It's like the mustard seed. You are the mustard seed. You are that tiny seed that is sprouting into something, to this big, magnificent fractal pattern. So it's inward, outward, outward, inward. And then that synergy ebbs and flows to create a whole new storyline for yourself. Okay. And as we do this, right, we start to see life from a whole different perspective. You can witness the miracles of life all the time. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Amen, amen, amen. Yes, Noah Davidson, Apostle Noah Davidson. Tell me about yourself, Apostle Noah Davidson. Poetic, hi. I was wondering where you've been. I haven't seen you in a little while. We've been having a good time with I don't know, but Linga's been getting on here quite a bit, and he played some music for us, and I was like, man, it'd be nice if Poetic was here. I've been in my cocoon. Got it. Yep. Sometimes we got to go through that metamorphosis, right? Yep. I'm growing. Yep. And I think we all are kind of going through that. I totally get it. We're in that place of metamorphosis where we're shedding old skin, and a lot of us are doing that. And that's what I've been talking about lately on the podcast, is that we are shapeshifters. Oh, you're pregnant too. Oh, well, congratulations. Boy or girl? It's been a journey, right? I got my girl finally. Oh, yay. Congratulations. Give her love. Send her love, everybody who's on here. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm growing a different kind of seed. It's a spiritual seed. That's awesome. Now, baby girl coming. That is so amazing. Congratulations. I'm glad. And that's awesome. There you go. I've been talking a lot about the mother energy. I'm a servant of God in Unity Divine Fire Ministries. Okay, Empowerment Bible. Okay. Oh, good. Divine Fire Ministries. Okay. Oh, good. I'm glad I asked you because now, Apostle Noah Davidson, we were talking yesterday about fire energy. And so Fire Ministries, I'm not sure what that means, but the fire's been talking to me. And I've been working with water energy. Okay. And water energy has really drowned me. I was starting to drown myself, man. I couldn't keep up with it. And I'm not used to all that water. And then boom, now fire showing up. And really what I feel, it's almost like the rise of the phoenix in some ways, right? The ashes burned down. Um, but in a way, I had to clean or purify through water. And now with this fire, okay, so I wanted to, and I was going to get into this discussion today. Um, and I don't know if this has anything to do with you, but you can always chime in. I would love to hear, okay? Is that Sekhmet, who is the goddess, sun goddess, and there's sun goddesses, and they talk about sun goddesses and stuff like that. Now, that energy, it's really just the energy that they're talking about, and the energy of fire and what fire has to offer in terms of supporting us in our transformational process. Okay. And the fire, yesterday, someone was telling me about the violet flame, and I didn't know about it. I really never used fire energy. It's not something that I only use energy when God tells me it's my time. I don't just go jumping from place to place trying to find out what things are for me. I really listen, and then it shows up. God says, here you go. And it just shows up the way it's supposed to. The violet flame really is the flame for the call to, I feel like, the ascended masters. Now, it is the call for the ascended masters in order to purify those things inside of us that don't serve us, that are no longer going to serve us internally, that we allow the flame to burn it up. Okay, the violet flame, to burn it up and to release it. And so I listened to some hey, radio projects. I was just talking about the violet flame, that I did do a little bit of research yesterday, and I did listen to some meditative stuff yesterday on the violet flame, and it sounds like that, like it's a call to the ascended masters. Now, there's different ways that you call, but this energy itself is to purify and cleanse, right? So that you're radiating at a space of the ascended masters. In other words, you're still able, and what's been coming up, to sort of use this energy to reconstruct your DNA, which is what I've been talking about. How do we allow ourselves to transcend time space? We know that there are codes. The codes exist within our DNA. How do we support our DNA so that we're able to transcend, that we're able to ascend, that we're able to move into the next time space, right? Or dimension, or whatever it is. Good morning to 152. And a lot of it is understanding who we are and what our internal fears are and what we need to let go of. So part of that is sacrificing a piece of ourselves that we need to let go of. And this comes in ritual, right? Now, the rituals being not, see, I think what happened in history, and here's where I think everything got distorted, okay, and humanity. Rituals in the past, right, were done. And rituals and sacrifice, and that's why they say, well, Jesus Christ was the final sacrifice. You don't need to be doing that. Well, here's the deal. I think this is what happened. And don't take it for truth, this is just my understanding of it, is that we used to do sacrifices of the internal soul. So when things weren't working for us, or there was a fear that kept coming up and we had to sacrifice a part of ourselves, that we would do it internally and perhaps give it up to maybe the violet flame, right? Or give it up to even just fire in general. We would say, fire, burn away this fear, right? And we would allow it to burn away and then rise anew from the ashes like the phoenix. But what I think happened is that humans thought that these sacrifices had to become material sacrifice. Now they can, and I'm not saying that they can't, but I think it went a little too extreme. And they started to sacrifice animals. Yes, you can go ahead and type whatever you need to say, FFH. Javid, good morning. Aloha. Aloha. You're in Hawaii. 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 They're trying to say it right. Okay. And so what happened is these sacrifices became an external manifestation. They're like, well, how do we show our sacrifice externally in the material world? And I think what happened is they got a little too extreme. They just got a little bit out of control with these sacrifices. And they started to, because when people hear the word sacrifice, they're like, oh, sacrifice. Well, yeah, because there's been blood and people have been sacrificed. I mean, they've had human sacrifice. Like, why would you do that? You don't need to do that. That's not what we're talking about here. You don't have to go. When we say sacrifice a part of yourself, we're not saying go and sacrifice yourself. That's not the point. The point is that you allow those parts of yourself that do not serve you to be sacrificed. And it can look like the material world, but not in the way that you harm other things or other beings or animals. Okay, that's the shadow side. That's the distorted side of it. That's the part where it's getting a little too extreme, right? Where you're just going a little bit on the deep end of it. That's like a lot too much, right? And then they've taken these sacrifices out of control. That's not this. And that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is that we sacrifice those parts inside of us and give it up to the purple flame to be transmuted into something beautiful. Difference. Can we create it on the material world, on the external world? Absolutely. We can create an altar, right? And the altar can be something like a written paper that talks about all those fears and all those hurts and all those pains, and that we write them down, and maybe we put a little jar and then we burn it up on our altar. That we can do. That's what you do. But no, they have gone to the extreme where they're like, now we got to sacrifice people. No, you don't. And the God said I had to. No, I don't think so. I no. I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say we think we have to be so extreme with our practices, and we don't. Everything doesn't have to be so magnificent, and no, we do baby rituals every single day and practices so that we can experience our divine self, or we can touch the divine, or that we can speak to the divine. That doesn't mean that you go to the extremity and do some off the wall stuff. I mean, people do. Okay. People do. They go to the total left side, and then that becomes suffering for them and humanity. That's not what we're talking about. It's finding the balance. What does that sacrifice look like for you? What parts of yourself are you allowing to die away and burn up to the purple flame? So that why? So that you can transcend. So that you can get a little closer to your God self, right? Love it. Okay, keep hitting me. Okay, let's see what this is. The heart helps, give and love, but yes, the heart does help, and that's part of it as well. Wow, absolutely. Wow. Come on. Wow. Okay, I'm reading your stuff. No way. I love you already. The heart helps, give and love belongs to God. Wow, thank you. Wow. Keep hitting me. Love it. Okay, hello. Hello, Tulin. And I don't know if Radio Projects is still on here. I'd love for you to chime in and tell me what you think about that purple flame understanding. And so understanding that, so we burn it up, right? And we take this altar that we're going to do. And part of it is transmuting the energy. It's shifting the energy from one to the other. If we allow ourselves to open up and offer up our fears, right? And this is where we say we offer our fears to God. Give it to God and let God transmute it. What we're doing is we're saying, take that purple flame, burn it up, and make anew. Be reborn. This is the rebirth. When people do baptism, it's reborn, right? So we know that there's these different rituals that we actually go through. You can do your own ritual and be reborn. You can give, now water purifies and so does fire. And there's two ways that you can do it. You can go take a sacred bath, right? A sacred bath with Epsom salt and put on some candles and put on some meditative music and say, I cleanse myself of this energy, right? You could do that. But when we're going to sacrifice something, we've got to kill it off. And when we kill it off, we give it up to the flame. So we say, God, take this. I give it to the purple flame, right? which would be the flame of the ascended masters. You ask it to be burned away so that you can rise from the ashes as something new in the image closer to God. You are the image of God. You're a piece of that image of God. We're a piece of that puzzle. Transmutation is the keyword. Yeah. Thank you. Hey, can be done without reference to ascendant masters, but also associated with Gemini via alchemy tradition. Awesome. Thank you. Yes. Okay. And yes, I will be looking into more of it. That's where I started. The Ralph Williams. Good morning, Ralph Williams. So that is where I started with the purple flame. So I will continue to be on the journey of working with this energy and what it means, and sharing what it means. Now, to transmute. It does transmute, but it also transforms. Good morning. Long time. I know. Good morning to everybody. Stay blessed. You as well, FFH. So when we start to do that, and when we allow ourselves to go through the process of alchemy, yes, it is alchemy, then we allow ourselves to reshape and reform. We become a shapeshifter. Now, some people are afraid of shapeshifters. Well, what about shapeshifters? What are shapeshifters? People think shapeshifters have to be somebody who changes their skin color completely, or their hair, or they look like a different animal. Internally, we are shapeshifters, and we have the ability to shapeshift, meaning that we have the ability to reconstruct, right, our patterns. This is not an easy task to undertake. Good morning, Roberto. It is not easy to restructure the patterns of our personality and the archetypes that we work with. We have to understand the energies that exist within us in order to transform, transmute, transcend, right? And that's the alchemic process, right? Where we throw something else in, we throw another thing in, and we're like, okay, now what do we do? How do we mix this together? We become the alchemic cauldron. And I think somebody said that the other day. We are the cauldron. Yes, we are. Our vessel itself is the cauldron. And what we're doing is we're allowing different energies to work with each other so that we can say, okay, this energy doesn't serve me. So how do I lift it up and out, right? Put it on an altar and allow, yes, the transmutation, like you said, radio projects, of this purple flame to so it would be transmute it, but then transform it, because that is the next stage. The greatest sacrifice a person can show is die for his friends. Yeah, synchronicity. What do you do with this energy? You are just speaking like, wow. Okay, tell me about the synchronicity, FFH. I've been hearing a lot of that from a lot of my listeners, like, oh my God, this is synchronicity. Oh my God, I don't know if you're tapping into something. So is it synchronicity in what I'm speaking of, or synchronicity in what you're experiencing in life? Because those are important questions. So if the synchronicity, so all those that are listening are feeling synchronicity, it's because you're doing the internal work that's magnifying or drawing out the important key elements that you need to do. Resonating with me. Okay. Oh my God. Okay, cool. Good. So there's a couple of people that have said that they're resonating with this particular topic, and Radio Projects was the one who showed up. Okay, I want to show you guys how this works, and this is pretty cool, right? And hopefully it continues, because that is what this podcast has been about since I started it. And there are pivotal times where everything starts to draw in together, and people start to say, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, right? And they start to freak out. Well, here's the deal. So for me, and this is for you as well, you're doing the internal work necessary. That internal work, trust yourself. That internal work is going to lead you on a journey. That is your internal work, is your connection to God. Nobody can tell you what that is. I can't tell you what that is. I don't know what that is. It's yours. It's personal. And then there are things that start to show up as we do the internal work and we listen to ourselves. as those things start to arise, we start to get messages. Those messages are given in gifts of, it could be looking up at the sun and all of a sudden having an epiphany, right? And you're like, oh my God, I need to do this. Or it could be a friend telling you something and you're like, oh my God, why did you say that? And it's because God is speaking through different individuals, through different modalities, different means to give you a message. Now, your message is important. When you listen to it, it's going to take you on a journey. That journey is for you and you alone. Whatever is being said here, right, is maybe something that you need to listen to. So radio projects started all this part because I was working with fire energy. Then radio projects gets on and talks about fire and the purple flame. And I said, oh yeah, well, guess what? That's what God's telling me I need to focus on. So I started to focus on that. As I focus on that and I start to understand what it means for me and I share, it's going to start tapping into other people. It's going to start tapping into those people who are listening to that particular message. So God is saying, hey, this purple flame, this sacrifice of our fears and sort of letting go of these pieces of ourselves that no longer stick and reconstructing our own self into something different. That's what's happening. So is it happening on a larger scale? Of course it is. If you know thyself, you're going to know what's going on with humanity. So you just know what's going on with you. That's what that means. That means you're doing the work. Okay? Exactly. There's a network of people who need the violet flame now. Yes. And that's great. And so it's come to me, right? And it's coming to you. And so for those of you who have ears to hear, eyes to see, will understand that that's the message for you. And then people go, wow, this is a miracle. Well, guess what? It is, because that's what God does, gives us miracles. Our creator, or whatever you call it. Okay. There's the miracle right there. And I always say, there you go. There's the miracle. How could you not want to do this work when miracles like this show up all the time, right? And people are like, what? And I'm like, yeah, that's what this work is. Is it easy? No. But we have these miracles where now we're looking at, yes, the purple flame, and perhaps, we could do, as I talk about it and start to do my journey with what it means for me, that you guys go and do what it means for you, because the way that it looks for you is going to be different than the way that it looks for me. The way that I work with that energy is going to be different, but it's your medicine right now. So we are gifted medicine. God will gift us medicine as we ask for it. But if we're not ready to receive the message and we just dismiss it, then we're never going to get it. So we've got to be ready to receive. That's the point. Be ready to receive the message. I could have dismissed radio projects and been like, no. But why would I do that? That's crazy. I would never say no. No. He's telling me for a reason. He came on here and said something for a reason. And it was all fire, fire energy, which is what I'm working with. Okay. To be aware is to be alive. Yeah. So as you guys start your journey of this and understanding that you are a shape shifter, that internally we have this ability to change and transform. We don't have to be our old self. Now, the core of us will remain. So if you understand the core of who you are, right, that's sort of kind of like the fuel, the energy that's internal. Okay. Know that deep within yourself. Understand it. And knowing yourself is going to take you on a journey. You don't need to watch the telenovelas, and you can. I'll tell you that I watch some shows. There's some shows that I dig, but the reality is my show is a lot more interesting. I have a lot of drama going on inside that I can look at. I don't need to go to the television. My internal battles, um, right, are just as crazy. And if I told everybody about them, they'd play out. Well, really, when I talk about this stuff, it's kind of funny because people talk about comics when I talk about my stuff. And I've never read comics. I'm not a comic reader. So I guess my storyline plays out like a comic book, or my storyline plays out like Dungeons and Dragons, apparently, or Hogwarts, which is kind of funny. Although I do love Harry Potter, I'll be honest with you. But my life plays out as a storyline that sounds like fiction. Why? Because my personal myth, I know who I am internally and I can express it. And when I do this, people were like, wow, what? So people have their own myth. Now here we go. How did these people come up with mythology back in ancient history? Part of it was viewing the world and making up what they thought about it, but the other part of it was their internal world and understanding who they were. And then what happened is society bought into somebody else's myth, and they started to follow that myth because they didn't know who they were and they got confused. And this sounds a lot like the story that we're going through now. They were confused. They didn't know who they were. They didn't know that they were powerful. They thought that they had to live somebody else's story. And as they started to live somebody else's storyline, they got deeper and deeper into confusion. Until one day, something came along that woke them up and reminded them that they had their own story and that they had their own personal myth. And that personal myth was where their power is. You have your own storyline, you have your own myth. When you go on to Gaia, there is a guy. I've only seen him once. I don't watch that stuff because I have my work I have to do. I can't get tangled up in somebody else's myth, right? I have to understand my own. So here's the deal. Gaia, there's a guy on there. He talks about his storyline and why he's here. And I don't know if you guys have watched it, right? I don't really know the guy. And I'm like, that's good. He knows his personal myth. But all he's doing is enrolling people into his myth. He's not teaching you how to create and find your own mythology, your own storyline, your own transcendence. He's saying, follow what I'm telling you. Well, what he's telling you, yeah, it could be good, but you have your own. Believe it or not, you do. Your stellar body, your all that has its own storyline. You don't have to buy into the masses storyline. You don't have to. This is where your power comes from. That is your divine right. So familiar, sounds familiar, word. Haha. Let's see. Yes, okay, you good. So familiar. You are a blessing. So much conditioning. We all need to be awakened. Yes. And so how we awaken is we start to dig within our own personal mythology. What is your personal myth? Where did you come from? Now people are like, oh, they're crazy. They said they came from this other world and this and that and the other. And okay, they're crazy, but you realize that we're living in the dream of somebody else right now, in their storyline, and that they created whatever they thought was right for the story. And we just follow it. You don't have to. That's the point. You don't have to, because God gave you the authority to create your own myth. And in fact, you have your own myth because why? Because you came from the stars, right? We know that we're stars in the heavens, right? And that we're part of the very fabric of that constellation that's external. And we've constellated, and we ourselves are a constellation. We ourselves are a universe. And everybody has their own unique myth. And when we tap into that myth and when we recreate our storyline and we remember who we are and we wake up to who we are, we're able to leave the gifts of what we need to leave behind. We leave it as a legacy. And that legacy then gets transpired into future generations so that they can then remember who they are. And remember that they don't have to be entrapped in a storyline that doesn't serve them, in a storyline that's made to harm or hurt, and that they don't have to accept that as truth. They have their own personal truth. And when it's connected to God, it's righteous. We needn't fear that it's going to come out in a way that's going to harm humanity. In fact, it's just the opposite. We're going to heal. That's what we do. We heal. When we understand who we are, we heal ourselves and we heal others around us. It's the natural flow and progression. I want you guys to understand this. If anything at all, you have your own personal myth and story, and that you're not crazy. Okay, because that's the big thing that's been said, right? You're crazy, this and that and the other. You're not. When you tap into that, when you remember that, and you remember who you are, you don't even have to tell anybody. In fact, it's yours. But you can play it out. I don't subscribe to other people's story. I know who I am. People who can't project their storyline on me because I know my storyline, and it's okay. I'm not saying we don't intermingle in other storylines, but we don't need to be the projection of somebody else's story. You don't have to be the projection of someone else's story. If we saw it like this, we said that we were a star in the sky, and in that star was shining through our vessel. And in our vessel, out came this rainbow of a story. But let's just say that somebody tried to hinder our projection. Let's just say a ship came in front of our sun, in front of our star, and started to distort our storyline and our projection. Okay? And I could draw this, and I have drawn this before in a diagram so that it's understood. Then we forget who we are and we become confused because we can't allow our star to shine completely. It's been distorted by the projection of others. You don't need to let that be distorted. You can shine in your magnificence. You've got to be able to sacrifice the things inside of you that no longer serve you. About 4 years ago when I started my podcast, I said, wake up, wake up, wake up. Because what's about to happen, you're going to need to be awake. And each level of what we're going through right now in humanity is going to require that we are awake and that we know ourselves. So if you're going to go on a journey, go on the journey of knowing who you are. That's the journey you should take. If you choose, you don't have to. That's the journey that's going to lead you to the promised land. That journey will lead you to the land of milk and honey. Not the external journey of listening to other people's story that they've already created. They've created this storyline already. They've written it. Okay. I hope this helps, right? And I hope you understand that your personal journey is your freedom. The knowing thyself is where your freedom exists. When you know thyself, there's no authority who can tell you who you are. Okay. So I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for showing up. Apparently the Violet Flame is important. Radio projects. If you have information to share with me, if you're still on here, are you still on here? Radio projects. If you are, could you please, I'm going to shoot my email for those who want to connect. That's fine. My email, Faithful God. Hello, Faithful God. Here's my email. And if you have any information, radio projects, if you're still on here, which I hope you are, please shoot me an email with some information that you think would be important for me to look at. You guys have a beautiful, beautiful day. I feel very honored to be with you guys here and now. And I feel very honored that grateful that you guys are working on yourself. You're working on supporting yourself into this next phase, which is beautiful. You know, there's a pocket of people that are really saying, I'm ready. I'm ready for what's next. I'm ready to engage in what's next. And that always fills my heart with so much joy and happiness, because if it's one person, that's enough, right? Even if it's just one. Although I'd like it to be everybody, but you know, you just don't know people where they are in their story, and that's okay. It's okay. So for me, I just want to say that I'm super grateful. I have so much gratitude, and I'm excited for your journeys. And I have people that come and go, and the thing is that I just hope that those individuals that were with me and then they leave, that they are continuing their journey to heal themselves and to remember and wake up to who they are, so that they can have all the blessings and beautiful miracles that be bestowed upon them through God's grace, because that's what we're here. We're here to witness the miracle. And we sometimes let ourselves get in the way of that. So go and be with God's miracle today. How about that? How about look at God's miracle and recognize it? Okay. And then just look up at the sky and look at the trees and witness God's miracle, because that is everywhere. You can witness it even in the most drastic times. There's always something there to be in awe of, always. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for showing up. I think radio projects might have left. But if anybody else has information on the Violet Flame, my email is up there, spiritandbrew@gmail.com. I also have my website, spiritandcoffee.com. You can link with me. I do a live podcast on Facebook as well. You can see my big face if that's what you want to do. But I'm always here on the vocal podcast as well, spiritandcoffee.com. And I'm just so honored to have you guys today. So you have a beautiful, blessed, magnificent, marvelous day. And I will be seeing you guys tomorrow as I continue my journey on the purple flame and see what it has to offer. Apparently, this energy is calling forth those individuals ready to step into the next phase of their transcendence. Pretty cool. I love it. And I'm excited to share it. Woo! Mahalo. Mahalo. You really made my life change and lifted me up. Your aloha to you too, and mahalo. I love Hawaii and where you are in Hawaii. So yes, I'm glad that I could be touch you in some way, and you touch me as well. Kona, nice. Maybe one day I could be there. Visit there, please. I will, absolutely. Now you're calling me forth. Perhaps I can go there and we can do a retreat there. That would be awesome, right? Purple Flame retreat. Awesome. Thank you so much, FFH. Thank you all for being here. Again, you can find me on spiritandcoffee.com, or you can follow me on the Facebook Live, and or you can continue here, whatever you want to do. Mwah. Have a great day. Bye-bye.